Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 6 Things That We Learned from Bradford City 4, Newport County 1. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try to 80 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below. Let us know down below your thoughts on our 6 talking points that we do go on to discuss in today's video. I am once again joined by Korban, and before we actually get into our 6 boxes, obviously this is the last one of the season. There is no playoffs for Bradford City this campaign, but who knows what could happen. And I just want to say thank you all very much for the support on the 6 Things That We Learned videos that we've done throughout this season, whether it's been by myself, with Korban, or with Frank. Thank you all very much for the support. I think we did over 40 of them in total, so thank you all very much. But let's start out then with box number 1. It's a green box for Bobby Pointon, a man we've not spoken about too much recently, and he's kind of just been consistent 7 out of 10, scored a couple of goals throughout that time as well. And yesterday on the score sheet once more, and it was an absolutely outstanding finish. And we need to tie him down to a minimum 3-year contract because he's the truth, he is the future. He has been the first person since maybe Danny Devine who's got an actual decent opportunity of coming through the academy and making it into the first team. And even Danny Devine, I don't know what he's getting up to these days, but he's not playing Football League football. Bobby Pointon is 10 times, 100 times the player of Danny Devine. I really do believe Bobby Pointon is special, and I do think he could be a future Bradford City captain at such a young age because the level of maturity that he's shown throughout the appearances that he's had. And you look back to a time where Graham Alexander couldn't even find a spot for Pointon on the bench, which was crazy. If Pointon would have been playing or even on the bench for them games, who knows where we could have been. But you look back on the season, it's all if buts maybes. If we'd have got 3 points there, if we'd have picked up a draw there, didn't throw that game away, we would have been in the playoffs. But he's done now. Pointon, absolutely brilliant yesterday, and I think the goal was just the icing on top of the cake, on top of the cherry. Does that even make sense? I'm not really too sure, but Pointon was absolutely brilliant, and it wasn't just the goal, which is an outstanding strike to find the top corner, and it's not the first time this season he's found the top corner like that. I think if he didn't win goal of the season for his goal against Tranmere, he'd have probably won goal of the season for that one because it was a beautiful strike, but so combative in the midfield, and for someone who's, not the tallest, not the most physical, he always gives it absolutely everything. His work rate is absolutely outstanding. His quality on the ball is brilliant. His link-up play with Walker, Cook and Kavanagh was outstanding, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those players linking up for next season, including Patterson and Young into there. And Pointon for me yesterday was absolutely brilliant, so he definitely deserves a green box. Like I say, we've not spoke about him over the last couple of weeks, so I thought it was only right to talk about him in the final game of the season, in what is hopefully not his last game in the Bradford City shirt, because I'm sure he's going to have a lot of offers from other clubs. I think he's finished the season on 4 goals and 3 assists in 15 or 16 League 2 starts, which for a first season in professional football, as someone who's played as a midfielder for the large part, I think is a brilliant return. And fair play to Mike Hughes for giving him that chance at the start of the campaign, but credit to Alexander for really bringing him on and making him a goal-scoring midfielder.
Absolutely. It's exciting what he can do next season. I think he will be here next season. We've got that option for a further year, but like I say, it's got to be more than a year. He'll probably get a nice pay rise as well, but that's the key thing, keeping him grounded, making sure that he don't get ahead of himself, and I'm sure he won't, because he don't come across as that type of person. He's got a great work ethic. When you see him on the pitch, he doesn't stop running, and he's got that quality at the end of it as well with the goals that he's getting. He's scoring bangers after bangers and linking up with the front three, and he just doesn't look out of place. And I think that's the best thing you can say about a young player coming through who's a hometown fan, and the fact that he is taking that spot away from senior players who, you look at your Harry Chapman's and he's not getting a look in, and neither should he, over Bobby Pointon. And the fact is, we didn't have a clue he was going to come at the beginning of the season and be, our shining light throughout. And it's been unbelievable. And you know what? We're not known for a lot of good things, Bradford, to be honest, but we are known for a magician in Dynamo. Well, we found our new competitor in Bobby Pointon, because he's got magic feet. The tight spaces that he can wiggle out of, it's second to none. And you know what? I said he needs to stay grounded, but he reminds me of Phil Foden. And I tell you what, that lad could play for England alongside Phil Foden, or even against Phil Foden, because he's a special player. If he can realise that and he can keep himself grounded, as I've just said, he can play for England. Crossing, I think, can improve, but if you're scoring the bangers he is, you don't need to worry twice about that. And I suppose next season, when he will be back at Bradford City on a new 4-year contract, the challenge for Bobby is to try and get double figures, whether that's goals, assists, or both, because he's definitely got the ability to do that and kick on. Because whilst I think there's rumours Sunderland could be interested, whilst they could go and, you know, if he's going, you better be prepared to accept a massive figure for him, because, you know, it's got to be for a player like him, and for the personality that he brings to the fan base as well. It's got to be a massive figure. But I think it makes sense for him to have another season at City and to keep progressing, keep developing, keep playing football at the level that he's at the minute, and to get his confidence and kick on next season and try and get Bradford out of this division.
I think looking at the wider picture, and you see, obviously, we are going to be in League Two next season. For some of these younger players, I think it is going to do them the world of good, because if we'd have gone up into League One, a lot of these players would have really struggled for game time, and I think Pointon would have been one of them players. While he's had a decent first season in professional football, that step up into League One is, you know, getting quite big, to be honest with you, especially with the money that's been spent in there. And Pointon, for the large part, has been very good this season, and now, due to his own good performances, there is going to be a little bit of expectation and a little bit of pressure on him next season to continue them performances, and he probably will start out the campaign as a starter, because I think he has earned that alongside Walker if they're both here next season. But he has to, you know, keep these consistent performances, because he didn't really get much of a look in under Graham Alexander at the start. He forced his way back into the side, and now he's made himself pretty much undroppable. There's, like you mentioned, a lot of senior experienced players with a lot more appearances to their name who can't get a game over Pointon, and he deserves all credit for that, because he's had a really, really good first season in professional football, and I do think he's going to massively benefit having another full season in League Two next year. He's going to play a lot more as well. Like I said, I think he only got the 15 or 16 League Two starts this campaign. I think around 20, 25 in total. But next campaign, if he can keep himself fit, which I think because of the type of player that he is, you know, his game isn't built on pace. I don't really see him picking up many muscle injuries. I think he's got to be looking at 35, 40 games next campaign. I think he's certainly got the quality to do so. Like you mentioned, the way he just wriggles out of tight spaces is absolutely outstanding to see. And yeah, thoroughly deserves a green box for yesterday. And as he has done over the last couple of weeks, because I do think he has been very good and a great first season for him in a Bradford City shirt competitively in the first team. Let's move on then to our second box of today's video. It's a yellow box for Callum Kavanagh. Now, he scored an absolutely outstanding goal, but then apart from that was absolutely awful. And again, in the last match against Barrow was really, really poor. Against Walsall, very ineffective. But yesterday, Kavanagh, literally, I don't think he completed a pass all game. I don't think he completed a dribble, a take on, he didn't hold the ball at once, but he scored an absolutely brilliant goal. So I don't really know where to go with this with Kavanagh, because he is only 20, 21. He's a very young player, and he's got a lot of work to still be done and progress, and that's why I've given him a long-term contract. But I certainly do see a player in Callum Kavanagh, and I'm excited to see, again, similar to Pointon, how he does go under a full season under Alexander at League Two level once more. Because I think, again, if we'd have made that step up into League One, you'd been maybe doubting Callum Kavanagh, but in 6 months, or since January, he's come in, 3-4 months, he scored 5 goals and 2 or 3 assists in there, which is not a bad return. I think he's only had 11 or 12 starts in there, so a pretty decent return from Callum Kavanagh when you look at previously in his loan spells with Harrogate and Newport, I think, where he scored only the 1 goal. He really struggled for form. At Bradford City, though, he scored a couple of nice goals, and all of them are very different. You know, he's had running behind and finishing into the top corner on his weak foot, like against Newport. Poachers finishes, like against MK Dons, a brilliant header against Newport that we saw yesterday. And I must admit, I was really impressed with the finish. Yes, it's a free header, but we've seen countless different plays. You know, if that's Tyler Smith there, he's probably falling over his own feet. If it's 30 yards out, Smith might have put that in the top corner. But Kavanagh showed a lot of composure, and it was more of an experienced header because he got a lot of power behind it. And it was a good ball in from Brad Halliday, but it wasn't whipped in with amazing pace. And it was a really good finish from Callum Kavanagh. Apart from the goal, though, I do think he was really poor in the game. But if next season, if he wants to play poor for 46 games and score every game, I'm not really going to complain. I'll go with the yellow box, though, for Callum Kavanagh.
Yeah, Kavanagh, he had a... It reminds me of that Accrington game where Wright scored 2, where he didn't have a good game, but he got 2 goals, and you're sort of in a conflict where it's like, well, you haven't played well, but you've also been a part in winning the match for us. And I go back to that and I think, right, well, it's concerning that you're not having great games, and you can't really see that improvement, that development, or the performance levels that need to be there. But if you're getting goals and you're winning matches and you're playing a key part in the team and getting and contributing, that's all that matters, really. It's like a football manager. If you're playing the most turgid, boring, deep line, hoofball tactics, yet you've won the league, you're not going to complain about it. But Kavanagh is a young lad, like you say, and I think that's why we need to nurture him. And hopefully with that pre-season, the year under Alexander, he can bulk up a bit, because I think he can be a bit lightweight. Like you say, he gets pushed off the ball way too easily. He doesn't hold the ball up, and he's always looking to try and do skills instead of protecting the ball sometimes. Decision making can be poor, but what he's brilliant at is his instincts in the penalty box. He's always in the right places. He's always bouncing around in there. And even for him to get his goal, watching him after he was giving the ball away, they nearly scored from him giving the ball away in the final third, and his head dropped a bit. And I don't know if that was him having a word with himself or whatever, but whatever happened, he bounced back from that, and he went and scored then a couple of minutes later. And that's a bit of mentality and character that you need. And he's got the work rate as well, because he doesn't stop running. He's tenacious. He wins the ball back high up. So he's important to us in that way as well. But I think next year will be massive for him, and I can't wait to see what he'll be like. But I think while we're looking earlier, because I'm a bit interested about the goal involvements, he's already got 7 goal involvements in 15 matches, which is pretty good, really, especially for a Bradford City attacker who in Andy Cook. And Scott Banks last season got 12 goal involvements in 36 matches. So, and Scott Banks, technically, fantastic footballer, probably in our best team of the League Two season since we've been relegated back there. And, you won't put Callum Kavanagh and him together. In terms of goal contributions, he's getting a much better average. So it's that. And last season, if you had a player who's getting the average of goal contributions that Kavanagh's getting, we'd probably go up. So it's just coming up at the right moments and scoring goals, and hopefully he can add to that next season.
What do you think the expectation is for Kavanagh next season? Because obviously Jake Young will be coming back. We've got Videnne Oliver coming back as well, potentially. You would expect someone out of the forward line, whether that's Oliver or Smith, the two more likely ones, to move on in the summer, and another striker come in. Do you see Callum Kavanagh as a 10-goal striker, a 15-goal striker? Do you see him more as an impact sub off the bench? How do you see the season playing out next season for Kavanagh?
Well, if Jake Young stays, I'd expect him to be starting up front with Andy Cook. So that probably leaves him as more an impact substitution, which I think could suit Kavanagh, because he's got that sort of mentality to come off from the bench and get at players. And I think it'd start a fair few. If he's starting around 10 to 15, coming off the bench for 10 to 15, you're looking at around, if he can get 10 goals next season, that'd be massive for us. And hopefully his performance improves as well. But yeah, I'd probably be looking around the 10-goal mark. What about you?
Like you say, it's really difficult because you don't know how much he's going to play next season. You don't know how the recruitment is going to go. But I think if he is a starter next season alongside Andy Cook, I think he could easily push for 15 goals. You would expect Cook next season to get 20, 25. You look at Jake Young, while he's done okay at Bradford City, his best spell was with Swindon. Can he replicate that form at Bradford City? I don't really know. But I certainly think he can get at least 7 or 8 next season, because I don't think he will play as much if everybody does stay fit. But then again, it's that problem with injuries. You don't really know what's going to happen. So it is very hard for us to predict, but I certainly do think double figures will be his aim for next campaign. So let's move on to our third box of today's video. It's a green box for Daniel Oyegoke. 1 week he gets a red box, the next week he gets a green. His performance is like a pack of starbursts, really. You never really know what you're going to get with Daniel Oyegoke. But yesterday, I was really impressed with him. And now I'm so undecided with what to do with Oyegoke next season, because we all know pre-injury and mainly under Mike Hughes, he was terrible. He was absolutely woeful. He then came back and had a few fairly poor games. Then he had a couple of decent games, then a really bad game against Walsall the other day. And then in the last 2 matches, especially yesterday, had a really, really good game. His composure and calmness on the ball, I think, has got a lot better under Graham Alexander. And I must admit, I have been more impressed than disappointed with Oyegoke's performances recently. Again, he's a young player, so he's going to make mistakes. And unfortunately, he has made quite a lot of mistakes, which have led to goals. I don't want to know what the statistic is, but I would say it's probably at least 5, and that's not great for the amount of games that he has played. I think for me personally, if Oyegoke is to come back next season, it has to be as a permanent. I don't think I'd be interested in getting Oyegoke back next season as a loan. I'm pretty sure his Brentford contract does expire at the end of this season, and I don't see him as a Premier League footballer or even a Championship footballer. I think he'll be a decent footballer around League 2, League 1. He could maybe in his prime get bottom end of the Championship, but I certainly don't see that potential, because he does have a clumsy moment in him every now and again, and sometimes he's a little bit too composed on the ball, and you're thinking, you've got to remember you are playing centre half, you're not at wing back, you don't really have that ability to make mistakes there, because you've got Platt and Kelly next to you who aren't the quickest, who are going to be able to bail you out. It's all right if you've got some quick centre halves, but when you are the quickest centre half and you're the one sometimes I won't say dilly-dallying on the ball because it works quite a lot of the time. I do think his movement is quite good, and going forward, he's shown he can whip a decent ball into the box. I think going forward, he's pretty decent. Defensively, in terms of if he comes up against a big physical striker, I do still have question marks over him. But again, I'd say them same sort of question marks when Tompkinson was in there, and he's 6'4". So I think for me personally, Oyegoke was very good yesterday. In terms of next season, if he is to come back, I don't think it's a priority, but I wouldn't be against it if it is on a permanent.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think in terms of a financial aspect of the deal as well, if you can get in a 20-year-old who's shown that he's competent at the level, he's got good games in him. Again, you're talking about your Kavanaghs, your Pointons. If you can develop these players, then you can get money on them. And it'd be similar to the signing of Odesina, that, you know, you're saying a young sort of centre-back, if you like, who you can develop and maybe sell on. Didn't work with Odesina. But in terms of that comparison, I'd rather have Oyegoke than Odesina, because Odesina can't start for a team that's trying to stay up in the National League in Woking. So I feel like that it's a shame how it's probably gone with him. But, you know, if he's struggling in the National League, I don't think there's a way back for him. But Oyegoke, he showed great character recently, to be honest. I think it's hard to call out that we haven't got much character, and, you know, players who, you know, are putting it in. But when they are, you've got to praise it. And I think throughout his tenure at City, it's been turbulent. You know, he's had tough moments. And if he was a more influential player, more high-profile player, I think, for example, Jamie Walker, who's had a couple of injuries and come back strong, then he gets praised for that. Whereas Oyegoke doesn't really. He came in under Mark Hughes as a right wing-back, the starting right wing-back ahead of Halliday, which immediately put questions on him. Rightly so, because why would you replace Brad Halliday? And in his first game, he gets sent off and we lose, you know, and we're at fault for a goal. So that's a terrible start. You've got to mark your authority, and he clearly didn't do that straight away. So pressure's on him, continues to play wing back, continues to fail to impress the fan base. Mark Hughes then Mark Hughes panics and puts him in midfield, which in his position did all right there, but because he's not a midfielder, again, the fan base are questioning it, makes him more nervous. You could tell he was quite nervous playing in there. Then Mark Hughes gets sacked, the manager who brought him in. Alexander comes in, gives him 10 minutes as a left back for an already injured player, and then he comes off with I don't know if he dislocated his shoulder, but it looked like he was in agony with it, because he was out for 3 to 4 months with it. He comes back, everyone's wrote him off, no one thinks twice about him. He's in the team sheet and everyone's going, oh no, why is he playing? And he comes in, I think, did he come in straight as a centre-back in a back four? And again, it's like, what's going on? Plays as a right centre-back, scores an own goal against Zarragat, but then comes back strong and has some really good games. Again, against Walsall, makes 2 mistakes, arguably, for a goal, and then finishes strong again. So he's had, like I say, I probably rabbited on there, but he's had some real turbulent moments, but some highs as well. If he can have a more of a consistent stay in the team next season, instead of being overlooked all the time, and have confidence in him, because he's a young lad, then I think we've all seen a player in there, like I say, he's composed on the ball. And I think recently, with that increased game time, he has looked better defensively. 1v1, he looks more confident going into those tackles, got a bit of tenacity in him. But like I say, it's physicality where I'm a bit concerned about him, where sometimes he looks indecisive against big target men, which is a main priority when you're playing in League Two.
Yeah, I think the word that I would use to describe Oyegoke on the whole is clumsy, because for the large part he does look good, but then at times you think he lunges in for a tackle or lunges in for a ball, and you think as a centre half it's very risky, and a lot of the time it does come off, to be fair, and I think we should credit him for that. But just on Timmy Odesina as well, I always thought it was such a weird one, because last year obviously he didn't really get much of an opportunity. He was kind of 3rd, 4th choice centre half, and obviously did he go out on loan in the second half of last season, or did he just not play?
I can't remember him going out on loan, but I can't remember him playing either. So
he didn't really get much of a look in once Sam Stubbs came in. And then this season, I thought in pre-season, he actually looked really good, and I was hoping he was going to start out the campaign. And then he gets sent out on loan and struggles to get into the side for a team fighting relegation, like you say, in the National League. And most of his appearances came as a striker. So I don't really know what's going on with Odesina, because he came in from Hartlepool with so much promise and expectation. We paid an undisclosed compensation package for him, and it's just not really worked out for him. I guess this pre-season is his last opportunity. He might see it as kind of he's already wrote off, and he might want to look to get a move elsewhere. But I suspect as a young player, that we probably will still get a little bit of money in for him. But does he suit Alexander's system? I'm not really too sure. But if Odesina does get that chance, then you might question, well, do we really need Daniel Oyegoke? Do we need a different type of right-sided centre-half? Because if you've got Oyegoke and Odesina, they're very similar in terms of much more ball players, not as physical, but we've maybe already got the physical defenders when you look at Taylor, Platt, Kelly, Stubbs, obviously a couple of them out of contract as well. But it is a really interesting one, and I am definitely really looking forward to seeing what the return list is like and who we bring in the summer. I'm very excited going into next season because of how well we have finished this campaign. But let's move on then to our fourth box of today's video. It's a green box for the king of Bradford City, Andy Cook. Absolutely outstanding once again yesterday. Gets another goal. It's a shame he couldn't get one more and finish on 20 for the campaign, but he finishes on 19 in total, 17 in the league, 50 goals for him in the last two seasons at Bradford City. And don't get me wrong, at times this season he has had bad games and he has missed chances, and I do think he deserved to be criticised for that. But on the whole, anyone who was saying, you know, in pre-season or throughout the campaign that because he's got his contract now, we don't really care, he's not interested, he's not as good, he's fat, he's lazy, all these sort of things that he got kind of connotated towards him, and he still finished the season on 19 goals and I think is it 10 assists in all competitions. It's an absolutely outstanding return for him, and I would much rather have Andy Cook than near enough any other striker in this division. I think his hold-up play for somebody who's not traditionally a target man, he's very good. His link-up play yesterday was outstanding. I think if you can keep Andy Cook fit for a full season next year, he's on for 20 goals at the absolute minimum, but I think he could push for 25 again, and I would expect him to be challenging for the Golden Boot next campaign. Again, he might pick up the odd injury like what he has done this season, and we need to make sure we don't run him into the ground, but looking towards next campaign, we're hopefully going to have more strikers who have got that quality in and around him, and yeah, obviously gets the assist as well for our fourth goal. Really unselfish when you think Cook, I think he said after Walsall his target for the season was to get 20, and you think probably last opportunity for him to do that. I think most strikers in that situation would try and blast it past the goalkeeper, but it's really unselfish. He cuts it back for Walker and picks up another assist, and that's just what Andy Cook does. Yes, at times he's missed chances this season, but even I think Macaulay Langstaff has missed the most big chances this campaign, and he finishes the Golden Boot winner and nearly got 30 goals. So strikers do miss chances. Even Erling Haaland misses chances. I've seen him tonight having a bit of a pop with a Carlisle fan, which is exactly what we like to see. And Andy Cook, for me, absolutely brilliant again yesterday, and I really look forward to seeing how many goals he gets next season. I think when you look at all the different strikers we could have, I think Andy Cook is certainly the one as of right now that you would expect to be starting week in, week out if he's fit. I mean, even if he's half fit, you probably still start Andy Cook over a couple of our options for next campaign. But yesterday, absolutely brilliant again, and definitely deserves a green box.
Yeah, would you be looking at maybe bringing in a player, a target man alongside Andy Cook who you can rotate with more? Because he's getting on. Is it a concern that he could pick up more injuries next season?
Well, I think it's very likely Viden Oliver moves on in the summer. He's proven he's nowhere near good enough. I think Stevenage fans were sick of him as well. And it's hard. It's kind of like what the problem Harry Kane had, or what Tottenham had when they had Harry Kane, where you know Harry Kane's going to be starting, but you need a good option just in case. But is a good option going to be wanting to sit on the bench for the majority of the season? I think that is a big problem that we are going to have next season. So I look at the options. I think you can play slightly different. I think because of Jake Young's size, you could kind of use him in that sort of mould. But I don't think I'd be desperate to get another target man in, to be honest.
No, like I say, it depends on the player who you're looking at as well. I think one thing you could potentially look at maybe bringing in that sort of a target man. You're not going to want to bring in a Matt Smith who's been linked. If you're going to do it, you're looking at a younger player. But then we've got Harry Edmondson, who maybe that can be his Bobby Pointon season next season, where he breaks through and plays somewhere between 10 to 15 games. And, you know, if he can contribute a fair few, if Cook isn't playing, and you just give him a run. But again, it's all about the pre-season, and if he can hit that running, then we'll have to wait and see. But Andy Cook is the definition of a legend. If you can get in the top 10 goal scorer record of Bradford City in this team in the last few seasons, he first came in, contributed massively to keeping us in the league. Then he had Derek Adams as his manager, and he had a few injuries, but he's still got double figures. And Mark Hughes comes in, gets him the Golden Boot, and all this season again, you know, nearly got into the playoffs, all down to him getting nearly 20 goals. So I remember at the start of the season thinking, if he can get to 15 goals, I'd be happy with that, because you know he's not going to get to the heights he did last season, and he wasn't too far away from that if the supply to him all season. But I think he played less games as well than he did last season, because he had a couple more injuries, didn't he? But like I say, selfless player, and contributes massively to the team. And all the centre backs in League Two, you see Andy Cook and you think they're going to be in for a game, so it allows your Kavanagh, your Pointons, your Walkers to pick up more space because they're more worried about him. And I think that's the massive thing. The name of Andy Cook is also much bigger than even his goal record, and that's massive for us to have a player like Andy Cook. And I think, like I say, he's massively underappreciated.
And just on his goal as well yesterday, it's a great free kick into the box from Smallwood, but it's such a crowded 6-yard box, and he still manages to pick up a space where it's like, how have you got so much time just to plonk that header in? And he heads it right into the ground. It's a really, really good header. Textbook Andy Cook, really. Header at the back post into the back of the net, and just a really, really good finish from him, as you would come to expect. And like I say, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does get on next campaign. So let's move on then into our penultimate box of today's video. It's a yellow box for Matty Platt. Now, for the large part, I thought Platt again was fairly solid yesterday, but there's a few moments, and it's particularly with his distribution with Platt, where I think there was no real need to play that pass, and you've put us under quite a lot of pressure by doing so. And we know Matty Platt's distribution is not necessarily his strong point, and he is very good defensively, and the stats would prove that. But I think over the last couple of games, he has got a little bit complacent, and at times you do get very frustrated with Matty Platt's distribution, because sometimes he plays a brilliant 70-yard diagonal ball, whether it's to Tyreek Wright or to Brad Halliday, but then it's the times where he's trying to fizz balls into the midfield, and it kind of like bounces at chest height for Pointon to control when he's got a massive centre half up the back of him. And that's my slight problem that I have with Matty Platt, and that's why he's a yellow box, because there's a few times where he was playing these dodgy passes into midfield and they were bouncing awkwardly, and it was kind of putting us under a little bit of pressure. Defensively, I thought he was fairly solid yesterday. There was a couple of occasions where Newport got in him behind. I don't think he can really do much about the goal either. It takes a horrible deflection off Kelly and falls perfectly for Harry Charles. I just think it's an unfortunate goal that we concede, but there's not too much to say about Matty Platt other than he was pretty good defensively, just on the ball. Again, his distribution could do with some room to improve. I still think I would rather have him around for next campaign, but over the last couple of matches, I do think he has got slightly complacent, to be honest.
Yeah, he's never been good on the ball. I do like his diagonals, but you can tell he just looks unsure when he gets it. It looks indecisive, and especially when early on when Newport were pressing his high, I felt like it wasn't necessary to be playing out and to put your Matty Platt's under pressure when you know it's not what he's comfortable doing. And like I say, it nearly led to a couple of goals. There were a moment as well where, I don't know if it when Kavanagh lost the ball, but someone lost the ball in midfield. We get done on the transition, the midfield's all open, and then I think Oyegoke went with his man to press, and then it left that gap open, and Platt needed to come towards the ball, he needed to press tight, and he sat off, and it allowed a lot of space, and I think they ended up 1-on-1. They obviously didn't end up scoring it, but you know, there's moments like that recently where Platt's just, he hasn't gone to his man and he sat off a bit. And that's a couple of moments now. It happened against Walsall. But I think he's still injured because he's gone down a couple of times in recent games. He didn't go down yesterday, but I think he went down against Barrow, you know, with a bit of a knock. And since that Harrogate game, you know, when he's come back, he's had moments like that. And I think he's lost a yard. So I think he'll get a deserved rest, come back next season, and hopefully he plays for us, because it is so important to us. You know, the stats don't lie when you look at him, and the games we've lost when Matty Platt hasn't been in that starting 11, it's staggering stuff. And is it all down to him? No, but I think just his presence in the back line, his calmness, that he's normally in the right places. He's going to have that physical battle with the centre forwards. And he didn't have a great game yesterday, but the player that Matty Platt is massively important to us. And recently as well, we haven't talked about him a lot, but the set pieces have massively improved. Hats off to Smallwood as well. Cook scored from one yesterday, but Matty Platt is a big part to that as well. Them two going towards the back post, draws players away, and you know, hopefully that's something that he can add to his game next season, because we've never really had a goal scoring centre back, and if he can add a few, you need goals contributions from everywhere. We can't rely on Andy Cook, and that's hopefully something that he can add next season if we can keep him. And I think it's massively important that we do.
I think, you know, we've made it pretty clear that we both want him to stay. And I think I saw a tweet which basically said we've only won one league game this season, which Matty Platt hasn't played in, which shows to you how important that he is for us. Do you expect him to stay at Bradford City? Like I said, we both want him to stay, but do you think he will?
I honestly don't know, because at the end of the day, if a League One club comes calling, like I think they bloody well could, then he will go. Because why wouldn't you? You know, Paddy O'Connor, when he was a captain and he went to a mid-table League One club in Lincoln, and that when we had Mark Hughes, you know, we had a pulling power. You know, we've got a great fan base, and yeah, there could be seen that there's progression maybe, but at the end of the day, he's been here 2 seasons, and we've only got to a semi-final in the playoffs. He didn't come here for that, and he's going to go for progression. And even if it's a club who's just gone up, you know, there's a couple of clubs who could easily want to play like Matty Platt because he's rock solid, he's reliable, and we ain't got that option. So to be honest with you, I think there's every chance that he will go, and I think there's a much better chance that he will, unfortunately.
I think out of all the players who are out of a deal in the summer, he's most likely to leave because we've got an option in every other player apart from Chapman to extend for a further season. I'm pretty sure if we'd have got promoted, though, we would have had the option in Platt and Chapman. So if we do end up losing Platt, but I still think at League 2 level, any player is replaceable. I think you would struggle to replace some players like your Andy Cooks, but I do think Platt is replaceable. It's just trying to find that available on a free transfer for a similar sort of budget, because I don't think he'll be on a load of wages because he came in from Barrow. So I think if he does stay, it will be a pay rise, and I expect him to play quite a big part for us next season. But again, he has had a couple of injury concerns this season. So let's move on to our final box of today's video. It's at green box for Graham Alexander. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the game, but it's more about this box for Graham Alexander building towards next season, and is he the right man to take us forward? Because I do think at times Alexander has made some questionable decisions. You look at his treatment of Pointon when he first came in around January, February, March sort of time, and Adam Wilson as well. He looked really good on off the bench against Doncaster, and we've not seen him since. And I expect Wilson to go out on loan next season. And you look at him being quite stubborn in keeping players like Stubbs and Taylor in a back three alongside Kieran Kelly, and we're getting done for pacing behind. You look at Swindon away, that type of game. And I do think at times he can be quite stubborn, and sometimes I think substitutions should come a little bit earlier. But Alexander, I think on the whole, has proven that he deserves the opportunity to have a full summer, have a full pre-season, get a transfer window, proper transfer window where he can get his proper own players in, and we build towards next campaign. Yesterday, I think for the first 44 minutes of the game, it was fairly even. You would probably argue maybe Newport were slightly the better side, but after we got the first goal and then the second goal, just moments later, we controlled the second half massively, whilst I do think we got a little bit complacent once Pointon scored, and that's why they get their goal. I must admit, I was slightly disappointed that there wasn't more substitutions. I think when you 3-1, 4-1 up at home, Newport haven't got really much to play for. I think we should have made more substitutions just to kind of see what we're looking at and the sort of players that we've got building towards next campaign, because I would assume that Alexander's made his mind up with 99% of the players. But you know, if a player came on for 20 minutes and was absolutely outstanding in there, it might have just swayed them slightly, because I don't think any of them were absolutely amazing yesterday. There was a lot of good performances, but none were 10 out of 10. So I would have liked to have seen maybe more changes. But again, I'm nitpicking. We've won the game 4-1, so I can't really complain too much. I would definitely say, though, Alexander has won me over, because I made it very clear that sacking Mark Hughes was the right decision, in my opinion. But I wasn't convinced about the appointment of Graham Alexander. And at times, we've gone on good runs. At times, we've gone on bad runs. And I think that needs to be addressed for next season. We can't be so streaky, because we win 6 in a row, then lose 4 in a row, then win 5 in a row, go on a 7-game unbeaten run, and then lose 4 in a row out of nowhere again. That can't happen next season, because that's how you only end up finishing in the playoffs. And the aim next season is to win the league. You know, you look at the competition for next season, I think top 3 is an absolute minimum. But I think if we don't win the league next season, again, it will be a massive disappointment. And for me personally, I think Alexander has the capabilities to do so. He's proven he can turn bad form around as well. So if we do have a bad start next season, which I really hope that we don't, because we've never had a good start for the last 6 seasons, and that's kind of why we've always been playing catch up. So I hope we win the first couple. I can't remember the last time we won on the opening day, but I think Alexander has proven that he does deserve the opportunity for next season. I think regardless of what happens next season, I'm going to try and back him for as long as possible, because I like Alexander. I like his interviews, and he's a man who can certainly get behind. I think he gets it. He gets the fan base. And for me personally, I think he does deserve next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always somewhat been bought into him, because I like him as a man. Like you say, he speaks so well and gets the football club. You know, you see his when he first got appointed, doing that team talk he had at Salford, talking about it. He gets what it takes to win at Valley Parade if you're the opposition, so he knows what's going on in the opposition's mind. He connects with the fans, so it's not like a Derek Adams where he's successful in the lower divisions, but he's just an idiot, a moron. He's likeable, but he's found the right balance of style of play now, where you can get on board with it. We were talking about finding that balance. Mark Hughes, it were tippy tappy, it were boring, it were it were too predictable. It was sideways and backwards. Under Alexander at the beginning, it was too hoofball. You know, he sort of went the complete opposite. But what recently, with the formation, with the players in it, with the balance that he's found of getting the ball down, playing into a midfield when it's on, and when it ain't on, we go along to Andy Cook. We look for diagonals with your rights and the Allardyce, with a pacing behind, creating overloads, and we're an entertaining team to watch because we get shots off, we create loads of chances, and defensively we've been really solid under him. Last couple of games have conceded goals, which is disappointing, but over the whole course, you know, the clean sheets have been stacking up, and that's something that's down to him and the structure that he's set up. And if you have a strong defence, 9 times out of 10 you go up, and that's something that Alexander has focused on, and he's recently got that attack firing as well. So hopefully we can build on that. But so yeah, in that regard, I think that's great. But it's just a shame that we found the right balance, the right structure, the right players, the right formula in the last 7 games, and it wasn't before. But then I look at the recruitment and I blame them, because why would you recruit so many players? You know, you look back at it and it's just shambolic, really. And you go back to it being, you know, maybe on Mark Hughes or Gent, whoever it's on, they're responsible for why we didn't go up, because all we needed were a couple of players to tweak that squad going into next season. We brought in loads of players that we didn't need, but then Alexander's got to play them. He's got to give them a chance. A couple of players he didn't give a chance, and they went in January. But, you know, you lost the Davies, your Taylors, your Stubbs for me, and, you know, a couple of others who a lot of fans haven't liked, haven't rated. He had to give them the chance, because he could have turned them into good players, and you don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of a player now who, you know, well, even Oyegoke, you know, didn't rate him, but now we're talking about maybe renewing him.
I think Small is the best example of that.
Yeah,
because he was massively hated under Hughes.
There you go. That's the best example you can give. He's developed him, and he gave him the chance. He could have quite easily kept playing McDonald after February, but Smallwood's come back in and he's been fantastic. So he's got to give the chances, and it's just a shame that now he's found that right balance and the right team.
I hope we do like what Mansfield did, I guess technically last season now, where they finished just outside the playoffs on the final day, and they finished quite strong with the campaign. They took it into this season and they've managed to get automatic promotion. But I think for them, it comes from sticking with a manager over numerous seasons, which didn't quite get what they wanted, and consistent recruitment in terms of the right profile of age, the right profile of player. And, you know, it's probably come at a decent amount of money in terms of transfer fees and wages, but they've now reaping the rewards of that, and they're now playing League One football next season. And I think it's about not just recruiting for this season, the here and now, because there will be a couple of players who are at Mansfield, as an example, who are League Two, but then they're looking at towards next season in League One, and the amount of players who are already more than capable of making that step up into the next division. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I think having another full season in League Two, it might, in the long term, be more beneficial for us, because if we'd have gone up this season, there's a large majority of this squad who I don't think would have been good enough. And the last thing you want is to end up like Carlisle, where you win, 4-5 games all season. You know, no one wants that. But we'll leave it there then for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you all for your support throughout the season. This series will be back for next season, all being well, but I think there'll be some tweaks and all that sort of stuff over the summer. Lots of content planned for the summer campaign, and I look forward to next season, pre-season starting, all the transfers. The return list, I guess, is the first thing. We expect that to come out later on this week. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you all very much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try to 80 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already, with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below on our 6 talking points that we did go on to discuss in today's video, that being Bobby Pointon, Callum Kavanagh, Daniel Oyegoke, Andy Cook, Matty Platt, and Graham Alexander. Check out Korban's channel as well. The link to that, as always, is down in the description down below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow for another video. Peace.